Hi guys, welcome back, and in this video I will be sharing with you 4 most common UI design mistakes that I see beginner designers make, and I believe that if you implement my suggestions, your current UI designs will improve and you will create better work. What we will go over is basically 4 broad categories. I believe most of you are plateauing right now. The first one will be about color and the number 1 skill you need in color as a UI designer. The second one is about creating hierarchy. The third one is about basically consistency. And the fourth one is about spacing. A single video is not enough to go on a depth in each of these categories, but in each category I will give you the single best advice I wish somebody had told me as a beginning UI UX designer. Tell me if this sounds familiar. Let's say you are actually going to implement some colors in a new design project that you are working on. You go to a site like Coolers or Adobe VO to fetch some color scheme. You copy all of them and you kind of go and paste it on your screens and you try what works, what doesn't. You pick another color scheme if it doesn't work, and you repeat this process till you find something you like. While this whole strategy might work for web design, where the thing you are designing is a lot less complex, it is very hard to pull it off when you are working on a mobile application or web application, simply because it's complexity. So that's why when somebody is working on an application as a designer, they usually are trying to first pick a primary color and then create variations of it, instead of picking 5 or 6 different colors and deciding which one should be background or other one. Now, what do I mean by this? Let's look at this example. I'm gonna show you what they do. I'm gonna create a frame here, and we are just gonna fetch its colors that it's using. And I'm gonna make this 48, and I'm just gonna catch this blue, okay? And I'm gonna copy, and then I go to the other screen or this screen and I see blue happening again. Again, there is blue again here, just almost like the same color, which is 225 is the initial blue, and this is 218, very similar, but just a bit lighter. And I'm gonna go create a third circle. I think this one might be also different. 225, that's the same blue that we had. Maybe this one, this is 218, just a bit darker than the first one, so around here. And this is basically almost all the colors that this application is using. It's using variations of the color blue, and it's also using variations of the color gray. In fact, it's also using variations of the color gray. In fact, if I go here, this is also blue, it's just a bit darker, it's 220. You have to learn how to make variations, and if you don't know how, please click on the video above where I go much more in depth on how to do this. But this is one of the first skills you need. And if you are looking at here where I just used the color example I picked from here, this is how I have done it once I just picked a base color and then created variations of it, lighter or darker versions of it, so that this is how you get it to look in the final. And I believe this kind of a design is way better than the first one, and it only is using one primary color, which is blue. The second thing I want to talk to you about is hierarchy. And the number 1 mistake I see beginner designers make is they only use the size property of elements to show whether an element is primary or secondary. If you look at here, if you look at the first screen here, for the name of the person, I'm using 18 pixels, and for their role, I'm using 14 pixels. And I could go even bigger. Most beginner designers go even bigger, because if you are gonna try to create a contrast, you gotta make the size difference a lot, right? That is true if you only use size to make a contrast between 2 different elements and to signal what is primary and secondary text in this case. Now, you can do other stuff. You can uppercase a text. You can reduce the second text, which is this one, its opacity, so it's lighter color. You can change the color of the title, like match it here. You could do a lot more different things, and doing those other different things will let you design much more creatively and will make you stand out. Third mistake that I see beginner UI designers make is they make inconsistent designs. If you look at the screen, you are going to see 3 input fields: the name input field, the email input field, and the password. all of these input fields are in the same category, but their height is different. The first one is roughly 52 pixels, the second one is roughly 50 pixels, and the third one is roughly 48 pixels. An average user might not be able to articulate what the problem is that they are saying, but they might sense that something is wrong. And usually this kind of mistake happens because when a designer is designing something on a screen, what you do is you design everything from scratch. So if I were to design this as a beginner designer, once I am done with my element here, which is my input field, I go and press F again, I create another, let's say, rectangle, and I try to give it the same properties, and I try to match its width and height. This is not the way to do it. You want to componentize as soon as possible so that you can actually copy and paste what you have, like here, so that nothing seems inconsistent. The more unique elements you create on a screen, each time you have a chance of making an error, and to minimize this, almost every element on the screen should have a master element that they take from. Meaning, if I create this label, you bet that I'm going to use it somewhere else where I copy and paste. If I create this input field, for every other input field, I'm gonna copy and paste. I'm not gonna design from scratch because I might make a mistake for the width or the height or the opacity, and my eyes might not catch it. And this is especially important if you are working on a production level project. I would really recommend you to learn how to create variants, and if you don't know, please click on the video above, because you need to create some sort of a system to minimize the amount of mistakes you can make. Number one tip I'm going to give you as a beginner UI designer is, I want you to double your space in each project you are working with. This is 24, I can make it 28. So the difference is, instead of 4, it's now an 8, and that looks already better. And that's the first thing. And I want the second thing is that when you are using spacing, spacing can be used to group elements together. What do I mean by this? In here, you can see that my kind of line height is 28 pixels, right? So my font size is 20 pixels, my line height is 28 pixels. The height between paragraphs is actually a lot bigger because a paragraph is a chunk of unit that is bigger than a line, and it has to be bigger, otherwise, if I make it too similar here, a paragraph spacing looks almost identical to line spacing, and that makes it very hard to understand. Am I reading a paragraph or am I just reading a new line? This actually happens because spacing is not just used to make things more readable or to make the design looks nice. It's also used to almost as a separator of different groups of content, which is why you have to follow the principle of, for an element that belongs in a group, inside spacing should be actually smaller than outside spacing. Meaning, a header belongs to a different group than the paragraph. Yes? Yes, it does. The spacing between the header and the paragraph, which are in two different groups, should be larger than the spacing of the paragraph with its inside elements, which are lines. And again, the reason we just gave, if they would be the same, and let's make it the same, let's make it the 36, so this will be 56. Now it's much harder to tell which is my paragraph and which is my header. The only way I can tell is because of the size of the font difference and the weight difference. But my eye is struggling a lot more because another contrast maker, an element, is disappeared, which is space. So you don't want to do this. You want to make sure to understand visually what groups your elements are, what is a header, what is a paragraph, what is a table of contents, what is the title, and you want to make sure that between each different group, the distance between groups is much bigger than the distance between elements in a group. Those are my 4 tips, guys, and if you like this video and if you haven't already, please click on that subscribe button below. I would appreciate it a lot, and if you do, you will get a notification when I release a new video so you can become a better UI UX designer. Take care. Hey guys, I have put 2 more videos at the end of this video that I believe will make you have a better career in UI UX design. Make sure you check them out, and if you have any questions, make sure that you drop a comment below.